Dean joined Vantiv in 2011 as the Senior Vice President, Product Strategy for the Financial Institution Services Business at Vantiv. Prior to joining Vantiv, Dean served as the Senior Vice President of Sales and Network Development at EY's and the Group Executive for Sales, Client Relations, and Marketing at Thesis. He was also previously with Western Union Financial Services as a General Manager and Vice President of Western Union Global Business Payments. He has experience in shaping the payments industry as the Vice President for Product Development at First Data Corp. Please welcome Dean.
Can you guys hear me okay? In the corner over there? I'm going to wander a little bit. Sorry about that. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Geez, that's a long intro. That's annoying. You have to listen to it yourself. I have the pleasure of talking about mobile wallets, which has not been the topic for the last day and a half, right? So after a day and a half of conversation about mobile wallets, what more can be said? And so when I was thinking about my topic here, knowing that I was going to be a day and a half in, I thought, you know what? I can't throw any more statistics at you that you haven't already seen. And I likely can't give you any more perspective than what you haven't already heard from a number of different experts. And so what I can give you is something that only I can give you, which is my opinion. And then act like it's fact. And so what you're going to hear from me today is actually what I believe to be what is missing in the solutions that are being offered in the mobile wallet market space, the mobile payments market space today, and really a prescription of what needs to happen to make it work. So if I'm doing my job right, at least as I see it, probably at least half of you will disagree with everything that I say, and probably 80% will disagree with most of what I say. And so if I see a lot of crinkled eyebrows and furrowed foreheads and people shaking their head, I'll know that I'm doing a good job. Because that actually is part of my premise, my thesis, which is that as an industry, we have not figured out how to rally around any one way of thinking about the mobile payment, mobile wallet space. We're still in that innovation area, so much so, with so much investment, so much distraction, that it's hard for anyone to rally around anything that looks like a standard. And as anyone who's been in the payments business and really any industry knows, doesn't matter if it's how wide you should make a road, or what VHS or beta tape you should use, or what internet protocol we should come up with, until people centralize around some kind of standard notion, the rest of the industry can't actually move forward. That's a key piece of it and part of the premise. So I'm actually going to start with a short video. I don't usually do that, but I thought this one was funny, and I figured that obviously for the folks that are here, you might be sleeping after lunch, so this will be maybe a good little distraction.
Delivering your products as quickly as possible. And today we're thrilled to introduce our latest service, Yesterday Shipping. It's easy. Click checkout, Yesterday Shipping, and when you confirm your order, you'll already have had the product for a day. Sounds simple, right? Well, it gets even simpler. The day before you order, you'll get a package that you're not expecting. On the box, there will be a note telling you to call the Amazon support team.
Hi, I just got a pair of shoes that I didn't order.
Yes, you ordered those shoes tomorrow with Amazon Yesterday Shipping.
And with Yesterday Shipping, returns are even more straightforward.
Actually, these are a size too small.
No problem, I'll send you a larger size with Amazon Yesterday Shipping. Okay, they're sent. They should have arrived yesterday.
Yeah, I know. I've been wearing them and they fit perfectly. So why did you send another pair that don't fit?
No, sir, your reality just changed. When we started the call, you were wearing your old shoes. We went over all of this yesterday.
Hi, I just got a pair of shoes that I didn't order.
Yes, 2 days from now, you'll order a pair of shoes with Yesterday Shipping. But the first pair...
Oh yeah, I heard about this. Hey, can I send myself with Yesterday Shipping and meet myself?
Sir, please don't do that.
Oh my God, are you me? Yes, give me your phone.
Why were you box?
Hi, I just delivered myself to myself.
Am I dead right now?
I warned you not to. I can hear yourself freaking out.
I/heel, fuck. But maybe he could use a pair of these shoes.
Amazon Yesterday Shipping. Simple.
What are you?
I actually enjoy the guy screaming at the end of it. Because it's sadistic, but it's kind of fun. So, it was probably a couple weeks ago that Amazon talked about actually trying to get to more near-term shipping and shipping products to distribution centers before people ordered them. Because they kind of know what's going to happen in any one industry. It's like normal inventory management that any large retailer does. But I actually think we're not that far off from that reality already today. And what I mean by that is whether you go to Amazon or you go to Zappos or you go to Pinterest even, people are already trying to promote things that are related to the things that you either bought in the past or things that you searched for on Google or Bing. In fact, if you type in tires into Bing or Google, I don't know if you noticed this, but for the next week, you're going to be getting ads from Discount Tire and everybody else, Big O Tires and everybody else. Not that you bought tires. You didn't, maybe you can go to a website, but they know based on your cookie history that you were interested in tires and you're going to get sandblasted with those ads for time till you actually buy a pair of tires, I guess. So there's a lot more intelligence behind the scenes going into how we're being marketed to that kind of gets to this kind of reality of yesterday's shipping, more so than we probably realized. Fact of the matter is that what we talk about a lot today is around the payment space. But really, from a consumer standpoint, as we all know, those consumers actually don't want to pay for anything. They want things, and they want to buy things, therefore, but they really don't want to pay for things. And what I mean by that is, as you look at the models, payment models going forward, they're going to be around really actually taking payment out of the entire equation. We've heard a lot over the last day and a half about frictionless payments and one-click payments and so on. But the real successful models going forward are going to make payment so innocuous and so transparent that you actually didn't even realize that you paid. You bought the service, you got the service, and then payment just kind of happened as plumbing behind the scenes. And I know we talk a lot about Uber in these kinds of sessions, but they're a perfect example of something that you order a car and it just happens and arrives, and you don't even know that you paid. You really don't know that you paid the Uber model. You know that you asked for a car, you got a car, and then you give the guy a rating. And by the way, if you don't give them a 5-star rating, he will hunt you down, because they're pretty serious about their ratings too. But that's a good model going forward. So anything that we do in the payments industry that moves us away from that frictionless, non-existent model is actually not going to serve us in the next 5 or 10 years, a la EMV, in my opinion. So I'm going to go through a couple points here, but I start with a basic thesis of product development anyway. Anyone who starts out by developing a product or innovating anything starts with a very basic thesis. And that is, we will not have any sort of scalable model in the mobile payment space until we think about 3 things. One, it has to start with a consumer value prop, a specific one. And I don't mean that in a generic way where maybe it's offers and maybe it's loyalty and maybe it's points. I mean, get specific about what we're doing for a consumer. The second thing is we need a common denominator. And in this market, that means the form factor of how the mobile payment is actually constructed at the point of sale. MagStripe is a form factor, EMV is a form factor, NFC is a form factor. That has to be settled on, not by everyone in the industry, because I think the word ubiquity is a lie. There is no ubiquitous anything. But you need to get to a point of critical mass that people can feel comfortable that when they use that option, whatever it is, that it's going to be generally accepted. My American Express, by the way, is not ubiquitous, right? I still run into places I can't use an American Express, which is why I have to carry a Visa card or a MasterCard around. But if I have the choice, I'll always use it 92% of the time, as an example. And finally, co-opetition. This is the key as an industry. And what I mean by that, and I hope, and I think we're starting to see in the tea leaves this happening, that industry participants actually do start to come together to settle on a fact that you don't have to have perfect technology at the point of sale. It needs to be good enough to create a better positive experience for the consumer on a mobile device. And that means people are going to have to compromise. It's not going to be the kind of the craziest, newest technology that comes out tomorrow. It's going to have to be something that people can rally around so that they can start to develop their platforms, their capabilities on top of them. I guarantee the guys who invented MagStripe, heaven save us if there's someone still in the room who invented MagStripe, those guys probably went through that process and said, well, it really should do this, and it should do that, and maybe it worked better this way, just like they did with EMV. But at some point, everybody said, you know what, it's good enough for the purposes that we've got, let's go forward with it so we can do something. Said another way, in more marketing lingo, it has to solve a very specific consumer problem, not vague problems, not a myriad, with a specific solution. It's not QR code plus NFC plugged in via Bluetooth running over the cloud. It's got to be some very specifically defined solution. And it's got to be done together as an industry. And when I say industry, I don't mean getting banks, merchants, and payment networks all in one room and doing the campfire thing. But it's got to be enough of the industry participants that come together to actually drive behavior across more than just a Starbucks. That might be done by an Apple. I think that's unlikely. It might be done by a Google. I think that's unlikely. I think it's going to be a lot of the people who have a vested stake in the payments industry today, who have solved things like this in the past, a la security issues and things like that when they come up. But it's going to be a number of like-minded individuals who know how to come together and collaborate to get to a single common goal. I don't see enough head shaking this way. So I'm not going to bother you with statistics because we've heard enough of them, other than one. We all know that smart devices are exploding. We know that Generation Y is important, but maybe some of us don't realize why. My colleague Lorena Harris is going to be going through some of the market research that we've done at Vantiv, between Vantiv and Mercator, that talks about the Gen Y population and why it's so important. But the one thing I will talk about is this next power virus, in case people don't recognize this. Generation Ys are those that are 18 to 34 years old. I won't ask how many Gen Yers there are in the room. The fact of the matter is Gen Yers will actually possess a larger portion of spend by 2015 or income than any other generation before. Which is logical, right? Because baby boomers were the largest generation. They had Gen Xers, and their kids' kids, and so on. And now we're at a point where this is a balloon of the population that is going to drive everything that happens in our economy and our industry going forward. And yet, when you look at how we market things still, we talk a lot about the baby boomer population because we think that that's where all the money is. In 10 years' time, Gen Ys are actually going to be driving all of this. And by the way, they don't want to jam a plastic card into a point-of-sale device at Wendy's, right? That is not the experience they're looking for. I'm glad someone said this on the last panel, and I agreed with probably 90% of what was said on the last panel. Payments aren't broken. But I asked the question, or are they? I think anyone who read the news the last month might question the fact that payments might be broken. You could argue where they're broken. But the fact of the matter is they are broken, which is why there's an opportunity to innovate in certain spaces that hasn't been yet. That's why you see business models. That's why you see new innovative companies doing things that hadn't been done in the past, couldn't have been done in the past, and challenging the status quo. Best example probably over the last 10 years or 15 years of someone who took the payments model and broke it intentionally and fixed it was PayPal. For those of you who were involved in PayPal at the time, they were the original PSP, the original payment facilitator. That model did not exist until PayPal came up with it. And they broke pretty much every rule that we accept in the card brand regs to get there. But they realized that there was an opportunity to innovate and be disruptive in a particular market by not listening to all the rules. And I think that's the point that we're at right now in the mobile payment space. The arrival of a simulchannel world, made up word. In fact, I just said it out loud for the first time just then, which is why I tripped on it. What that means is obviously people are not going to want to put credentials in their phone and on the e-commerce site and carry them around in a wallet. 5 or 10 years from now, let's all hope that our credentials are stored securely by people with armed weapons and really smart security geeks watching this stuff day and night for us, and that the objects and tokens that we use walking around to interact with the world are not that valuable, so that if they get lost or compromised, it doesn't mean we have to issue another 100 million debit and credit cards to all the consumers in the country. And is it going to be the answer? I don't know what everybody's feeling is. I'm sure I'll hurt some feelings when I say this. It's not the answer. It's a component of a potential solution. But even as I was reading this morning, as we get more and more information about the breaches that happen at some of the major retailers, EMV would have not stopped or prevented that particular breach the way it was implemented, the way it was executed. And the fact of the matter is that unless you had ubiquitous EMV acceptance, which by virtue of EMV you can't because e-commerce is going to be there, mobile commerce is going to be there, you're always going to have an outlet for fraudsters to take data that they steal from someone and use it in nefarious ways. And so I think, unfortunately or fortunately, for folks who have been kind of bantering EMV for the past decade, the fact of the matter is that we as an industry tried to settle on a standard, and now we've started to gen up as an industry to start to try to adopt this standard. What I think is going to happen is it's going to distract the industry for the next 5 years, probably as regulators on Capitol Hill and at the state level implement EMV because it'll solve this problem, and it won't. But we'll go implement it. For us as Vantiv, we've got about 450,000 agents that we process for. Everyone from tier 1 retailers like Nordstrom and Macy's and Kroger all the way down to mom and pop flower shops. And I can tell you that none of them have been very anxious to implement EMV for a lot of reasons. Part of its cost, is part of its complexity. Part of it is they don't know what's going to happen the first time a customer walks in and tries to introduce this card and has never been exposed to this and has an absolutely horrid experience. I used the EMV chip card in the Wendy's example because the last time I was in Canada, I went to a Wendy's and I had to jam my American card, which didn't have a chip on it, by the way, into this machine so it could tell me it wasn't a chip card. Genius. So that she could then go, okay, well, I have to swipe it. And it was a back and forth, back and forth. It's a horrible experience. But we still got some work to do, I think, there. Not that I'd kill EMV out loud, but I think there's better ways to solve the problem. And I know people have said this before, but we're trying to solve 21st century problems with 20th century technology. It's probably not going to get us where we need to be. So critical mass is the issue here, not ubiquity. Let's not overthink ourselves into thinking we can do anything ubiquitously. But the fact of the matter is, if you're a merchant, and we talk to merchants every day, we are also a large debit, credit, and prepaid issuer. So financial institutions are our customers. People like Capital One Bank and Fifth Third Bank, all the way down to Duke Credit in Nevada, and everywhere in between. And we also own and operate a regional debit network called Genie. And so from the place that we sit, we have an opportunity to kind of actually see the entire payments mix from both ends, the issuer side, the merchant side, and all the gateways and ISVs and dealers and payment facilitators that sit in between. And I can tell you that when we talk to merchants, forget consumers, they're completely dumbfounded. They have no idea what to do. Some are off trying to do their own thing. Some are wondering if there's any way to play with ISIS in a meaningful way. Some are asking what Google Wallet is, and if it's out there to hurt or help or hurt them, of the specter of Apple and Amazon. And then they see this notion of QR codes and NFC, and it's frankly, for any of us in the room, it's overwhelming, and we know that. That's why we have these kinds of conferences. But for a merchant who's just really trying to sell more stuff, to sell more lipstick or more flowers, they don't really understand it or care. It goes back to the value prop for them. Until some number of these participants actually sit down together and try to solve this, and by solve it, I mean actually collaborate on a de facto standard or a standard, we'll continue to try to out-innovate each other. When actually that's not really going to solve anything in a scalable way, in my opinion. So, I'm going to walk through, I think, 8 key ingredients. I'm going to do it quickly. This, if I were writing a recipe for a successful mobile wallet, this is what it would be. Please feel free to disagree at will. Customer first, always. What is the problem that the customer is trying to solve? It's not payments, we all know that. Someone said yesterday, I can't remember who it was, that customers don't worry about their stuff being safe, or they don't think about it first. I would argue that they actually do think about it first, but they don't think about it at all because they expect it. When they go to Bank of America and they do a mortgage app, they don't expect all their personal information to be posted on an internet site. When you sign into Gmail, you don't expect your email to be accessible by anyone who wants to read it. Safety is just inherent in anything that you do, especially in the payment space, and by the way, we failed recently as an industry. So making safe to me is, I mean, who would buy an airplane ticket on an airline that has a really poor flight record, right? Who would go on a cruise ship that has 600 passengers get sick on it? Although I talk to people who are loyal to cruise ships and they're like, oh, I'm going every month. We're nuts. They wanted to save them money. It has to be fast to them. They actually want to feel special and included or exclusive. This is one area where I think we fall short in just getting customers to a point where they actually feel like they're more than just the next guy who walked in the door. That sometimes is enough to drive behavior. And it's got to be easy. We've heard these things over and over again. I suggest that what we have to do is not try to solve them all. We have to be safe, no question. The rest of these things, pick one and be good at it. We talk about Starbucks a lot, and I don't know about you guys, maybe you're the same way. When I'm in Starbucks and I see people paying with their wallet, their Starbucks app, I ask them why do they use it. And sometimes people look at me oddly, as they often do. And sometimes they actually answer the question. And 9 times out of 10, what they answer with is, it tracks my loyalty points, and I love these little stars, right? I don't have to think about it when I get a free cup of coffee. 1 or 2 times out of 10, they say it's faster. We could argue whether it's faster or not. But the fact of the matter is that what Starbucks solved was a loyalty program problem, which is how do I get my discounts and my savings without having to think about it? That's a good enough problem. The fact that it's faster, or that they don't have to carry their purse, in my opinion, secondary benefits, not as important, and certainly wouldn't have driven the behavior and adoption that they've seen. So the point here is pick one. I didn't see what's on server. Okay. Second key ingredient, stop trying to reinvent the wheel. Where I sit every day, people come in with the grandest new payment technology, a mobile app that's going to revolutionize the world. And it's so disconnected from the reality of the payments market in the sense that cool technology is like a little gadget, right? We got gadgets as kids, we're like, oh, this is the coolest grand thing, but it only serves one purpose in a very limited way. There are distribution networks, sales channels, there are payment ecosystems and infrastructures that exist in the marketplace today that if you want to get critical scale at anything, you go talk to Kroger and say, hey, here's a cool new app, watch this experience, it's going to be fantastic, you'll love it. They'll say, great, I have to process about $10 billion worth of sales through it, and I have to settle it, reconcile it, answer questions when there's chargebacks. I need reporting. I need to know if the networks you're routing through are actually saving me money or costing me money. All those things are what acquirer processors and issuer processors do. You can't just ignore it because you've got some cool gadget at the front end. Commercial models. We talked a lot about that. Anything that we do in this environment that isn't at least cognizant of the fact that you're introducing a new cost into the model, which at least for now is certain that you'll be adding new costs. If it's not offset by something, it's a non-scalable model. And by the way, when I say adding cost, I mean on top of the entire ecosystem that's there. The ISOs that sell the terminals to the merchants. Right? The processors that process the transactions, the gateways that switch these things from the point of sale. These things all have to be factored into that model. And if your business model is, you know what, I'm cheaper than a credit card somehow, because you have to buy my prepaid card or use my closed-loop platform, I think that's unlikely to succeed on a large scale, unless you're working with one retailer. So the key here is leverage the existing infrastructure. Next point, and I'm sure some folks in the room who probably come from these parts of the industries will disagree. I am a big proponent of tokenization across all things, across the payment credentials, consumer credentials, phone numbers, emails, whatever it is. Tokenization of any personally identifiable information as soon as possible and as far down the stream as possible, and hopefully as single use as possible is best in my opinion. And it goes back to this theory that, and I was talking with someone, I think it was Jack Bryce earlier on, about the notion of, is it safer to try to distribute information or have it centralized and protected in one spot? His argument was, well, if you distribute it, then if you get one device, then you've only gotten one set of credentials. My notion is you have to protect these things centrally anyway. You're investing there. Put all of your investment in one spot. Take everything out of the distributed devices so you don't have to worry about it. So in my opinion, credentials, any program or platform or mechanism that pushes credentials into a distributed device, whether it's a laptop or a tablet or a point of sale terminal device or the coin card, whatever that is, I think ultimately is going to be flawed. Moreover, because it means you're going to have to reissue something at some point. When there is a breach, and there will be continuous breaches of some kind, it means that you don't have an easy, clean mechanism to get new credentials out to the customer. You have to, in today's world, print new plastic. In tomorrow's world, securely promote new credentials onto that device. So single-use tokens are the best, and I think these next 18 months, I can tell you from personal experience, as I'm talking with these large retailers, where tokenization and encryption 6 months ago was interesting, and boy, it would be nice if we could spend some money on that. Boy, it's going to increase my cost, maybe not so much. Now it's not a sales job anymore. It's basically how fast can I implement, right? For obvious reasons. And it's the right thing to do for the industry. Number 4, open up the tender types. In my opinion, any wallet scheme that doesn't have at least the ability to open up the tender types to a number of different options is going to limit itself, not just today, but in 3 years' time or 5 years' time. Now, I'm not a big fan of Bitcoin, but Bitcoin-ish, we will live in a Bitcoin-ish reality. There will be currencies that are expanded upon, and things that are distributed. Closed loop, open loop, quasi-open, closed, who knows what it is, that wallets are going to have to support for very specific purposes or broad-based purposes. And again, every hurdle you put in front of that consumer, like sign up for my prepaid card, and then sign up all your cards on my cloud-based wallet, these things stand in the way of consumer adoption, and certainly don't make it easy to use. Enablement versus exclusivity. One of the things that I've been seeing from a lot of the major wallet providers lately is this notion of, if you're going to use my wallet, then you can only use my wallet. And for a merchant or an issuer, that's a non-starter. There's not enough knowns in this industry yet to sign a long-term exclusive deal with anyone to say that I'm going to bank on that pony indefinitely. And that wouldn't be responsible. We're in the same spot as we distribute these things out to our merchants and issuers. And I would argue that if your best value prop is the fact that you signed up for somebody exclusively to use your wallet technology, that is a very fleeting value prop, and probably not one that's going to be successful. Focus on getting adoption of that payment mechanism, enabling technology, doing it as quickly as possible, and creating value for a merchant as to why they want to accept it or adopt it. That's where your attention should be, not on trying to negotiate exclusive terms of acceptance. Fact of the matter is, at this point, mobile payment adoption on a scale will help everyone, right? On any scale. We can stop talking about Starbucks at one of these conferences, I'd be happy. Number 6, make it simple. This is pretty standard, but one of the things that I also see is when people create new technologies, they build their own mobile app and they build their own mobile platform, and then they come and create this wonderful new demo, and it looks slick. Perfect experience, right? And then you ask them, well, how are you going to embed this into the retailer's application? How are you going to put this into the retailer's ecosystem and plug it into their back office operations? How are you going to open it up to the developer community so that your application folks are not the only ones who can innovate on that platform? Anything that's going to be successful in this market has got to take a platform approach, in my opinion. If it's only one entity that actually holds the reins and controls all this stuff, no one else is going to want to jump in and play, because they're going to want to go invent their own thing. And so you have to be able to do both embedded apps and standalone. Standalone for people to pilot and prototype, and for smaller merchants to be able to play. Embedded because the big guys are not going to sit on the same application as each other, right? Whole Foods and Sprouts, Kroger and Safeway, they're not going to sit in the same ecosystem right next to each other if they can help it. That means you've got to have a good set of APIs and developer tools that allow people to innovate on top of that platform. And this is a Gen 2, Gen 3 conversation with people who go build cool technology in phase 1. They build it in such a way that it works, and then they go, oh, okay, now we've got to scale. And so then they go back and try to regen it in such a way that it can be expounded into a broader audience. Number 7, this is just obvious, and I hate to pick on Target because they're going to be reeling from this for a long time. But the fact of the matter is that this is a failure of our industry. Right? I mean, that's what this means. We go all point at Target and say, geez, I'm glad it's not me. This could be anyone. In fact, it could be anyone today. So we just don't know it. And as we talk to retailers who are big, they say things like, well, we have a lot of people working on security. We have a lot of people focused on it. We spend a lot of money on making sure our data is secure. There are a lot of people in other countries around this world that spend hundreds of thousands of hours and pay people practically nothing or nothing to go figure out how to hack this stuff every day. For those of you who are involved in the security industry, I mean, if you ever listen to any of these calls from any of the organizations that drive this cybersecurity guys, it's terrifying, right? You board up your house and you disconnect all your internet and you would live on cup noodles for the rest of your life, because it is terrifying. The fact of the matter is we've got to do something about this in a meaningful way. And that doesn't mean half steps and kind of, stepping into it. It certainly doesn't mean just looking at it as the holy grail of solving this problem. And this is what really upsets me about these kinds of situations, is because as an industry, we're going to get distracted now by trying to solve things that are ghost problems. Not that this was a ghost problem, but ghost solutions. We're focusing on taking the next step in the evolution of where we take this. And after we go to that, we're going to have to solve it again because the hackers are going to continue to try to come after it. Last thing, key ingredient, give it a name. So anything that we do in this space has to have some kind of brand recognition. I'm not saying there's only one brand. I'm not saying there's only one solution. But whatever people come up with has to have some kind of tag to it so that when a customer walks into a location, they know that it can be accepted. Worst thing ever is when you're standing at the counter. Two worst things. One is they don't take your card, which you can pretty much tell these days. The second thing is your card's declined, right? Which happened in the debit network days a long time ago when they weren't all cross-connected. You never quite knew at the grocery store if your card was going to be accepted or not. So while I'm saying that you have to have a brand, I don't think it should be a retailer-specific brand. I think that would actually harm what we're trying to do. It has to be some kind of ecosystem brand. And so what we do is brand the enablement, the acceptance technology, the method, the form factor, brand that in such a way and promote that as an industry so that people can rally around. Quick little cartoon. This is basically a picture of a person's brain with a bunch of things that are actually really important to people, like home and friends and career and sunsets. And the one guy says, I don't see our brand of pickle relish anywhere. And the other guy says, this is inconceivable. This is a brand royalist. This is just going to the point of the fact that anything that we do in this room, sadly, the only time it's going to get any notoriety is when it's done wrong. And so if we're doing our jobs right, people would not know that we exist, that the payment industry just works, money moves between people in a trusted way, and they can trust that system to do it. And that's sometimes a hard thing to do, especially if you're a big brand, technology company or something like that. You'd like to see your name in headlines. But we have to ground ourselves in the fact that even us as consumers every day, I don't know about you, I've practiced with every mobile wallet. If it makes me uncomfortable, I'm not going to use it, right? I'm just like everyone else. I don't want to stand in front of a merchant and have something not accept. So I think we have to keep this in mind. So those are the points. Disagree at will. I think I have a few minutes for questions. But these are the things that if I were building a mobile wallet in my own utopian environment, these are the things that I would do and offer the network. Any questions? Yes.
You advocated single-use tokenization, which certainly is real strong security, but how would that work for loyalty applications? Since you don't have that common key unless you somehow split that out.
Yeah, I think, and as many of you probably know, Visa and MasterCard have recently announced a tokenization standard scheme, right? I think one way to solve it is that you end up with these tokenization networks or providers. And so anytime that you want to link things back, you have to go back to that service provider and say, here's my token, what customer was this associated to? I can tell you when we're talking to retailers, this is one reason why they were hesitant to go to any third-party tokenization scheme because they didn't want to lose control of the association of the data. But on the other side, they now say, I don't want any payment data in my network. Get it out. In fact, if you can take all the customer data and store it somewhere that I don't have to worry about it, fantastic. I still need my marketing analysis for that reason and analytics, but I really don't want to store it. And so I don't purport to have a solution to it, but I think that if every retailer comes up with their own tokenization scheme, that would be a half-step measure. We've got to come up with a smarter way to solve that problem. I think there is one out there.